Hello friends, today we are going to do the chapter The Dream Catcher. The Dream Catchers is an extract taken from the novel The BFG, which was published in 1982. It is a story about a giant who hunts and captures dreams in a bottle. He blows these dreams into children's ears while they are asleep. The BFG speaks in a gobbled funk language that includes words like akimacy, messy and delicious. He meets Sophie, an orphan, and saves her from 9 other fearsome giants who eat human beings, or rather human beings as the BFG who would have called them. Now read on. The BFG, big friendly giant, put the suitcase on the ground. He opened the suitcase and took out several empty glass jars. He set them ready on the ground with their screw tops removed. Then he stood up very straight. His head was now high up in the swirling mist, and it kept disappearing, then appearing again. He was holding the long net in his right hand. Sophie, staring upwards, saw through the mist that his colossal ears were beginning to swivel out from his head. They began waving gently to and fro. Suddenly, the BFG pounced. He leaped high in the air and swung the net through the mist with a great swishing sweep of his arm. "Got him!" he cried. "A jar! A jar! Quick, quick, quick!" Sophie picked up a jar and held it up to him. He grabbed hold of it. He lowered the net. Very carefully, he tipped something absolutely invisible from the net into the jar. He dropped the net and swiftly clapped one hand over the jar. "The top," he whispered. "The jar top, quick!" Sophie picked up the screw top and handed it to him. He screwed it on tight, and the jar was closed. The BFG was very excited. He held the jar close to one ear and listened intently. "It's a winged squiffalo," he whispered with a thrill in his voice. It's even better. It's a fizz wizard. It's a golden fizz wizard." Sophie stared at him. Oh my," he said, holding the jar in front of him. "This will be giving some little toddler a very happy night when I is blowing it in." "Is it really a good one?" Sophie asked. "A good one," he cried. "It's a golden fizz wizard. It is not often I is getting one of these." He handed the jar to Sophie and said, "Please be still as a starfish now. I is thinking there may be a swarm of fizz wizards up here today. And do kindly stop breathing. You is terribly noisy down there." "I haven't moved a muscle," Sophie said. "Then don't," the BFG answered sharply. Once again, he stood up tall in the mist, holding his net at the ready. Then came the long silence, the waiting, the listening, and at last, with surprising suddenness, came the leap and swish of the net. "Another jar!" he cried. "Quick, quick! When the second dream was safely in the jar and the top was screwed down, the BFG held it to his ear. "Oh no!" he cried. "Oh, mince my maggots! Oh, swipe my swoggles!" "What's the matter?" Sophie asked. "It's a Trogglehumper," he shouted. His voice was filled with fury and anguish. "Oh, save our souls!" he cried. "Deliver us vessels! The devil is dancing on my dibbler." "What are you talking about?" Sophie said. The BFG was getting more distressed every moment. "Oh, bash my eye bones!" he cried, waving the jar in the air. "I come all this way to get lovely golden dreams, and what is I catching?" "What are you catching?" Sophie said. "I is catching a frightsome Trogglehumper," he cried. "This is a bad, bad dream. It is worse than a bad dream. It is a nightmare." "Oh dear," Sophie said. "What will you do with that?" "I is never letting it go," the BFG cried. "If I do, then some little toddler will be having the most cold-blooding time. This one is a real kiski, both humper. I is exploding it as soon as I get home." "Nightmares are horrible," Sophie said. "I had one once, and I woke up sweating all over. With this one you would be waking up screaming all over," the BFG said. "This one would make your teeth stand on end. If this one got into you, your blood would be freezing to icicles, and your skin would go creeping across the floor." "Is it as bad as that?" "It's worse," cried the BFG. "This is a real whoopsie grop switcher." "You said it was a Trogglehumper," Sophie told him. "It's a Trogglehumper," cried the exasperated BFG. "But it is also a bogged humper and a grub switcher. It is all three riddled into one. Oh, I is so glad. I is clutching it tight. Ah, you wicked beastie, you!" he cried, holding up the jar and staring into it. "Never more is you going to be bunk doodling the poor little human beanie toddlers." Sophie, who was also staring into the glass jar, cried out, "I can see it. There's something in there." "Of course, there is something in there," the BFG said. "You is looking at a frightsome Trogglehumper. But you told me dreams were invisible." "They is always invisible until they is captured," the BFG told her. "After that, they is losing a little of their invisibility. We is seeing this one very clearly." Inside the jar, Sophie could see the faint scarlet outline of something that looked like a mixture between a blob of gas and a bubble of jelly. It was moving violently, thrashing against the sides of the jar and forever changing shape. "It's wiggling all over the place," Sophie cried. "It's fighting to get out. It will bash itself to bits. The nastier the dream, the angrier it is getting when it is in prison," the BFG said. "It is the same as with wild animals. If an animal is very fierce and you is putting it reach, it will make a tremendous rumpeldumpus. If it is a nice animal like a cockatoodle or a fogelfrump, it will sit quietly. Dreams are exactly the same. This one is a nasty fire's bog-rotting nightmare. Just look at him, splashing himself against the glass. It's quite frightening, Sophie cried. I would be hating to get this one inside me on a darksome night, the BFG said. So would I, Sophie said. The BFG started putting the bottles back into the suitcase. Is that all? Sophie asked. Are we going? I is so upset by this troggle humping, bog humping, grob switcher, the BFG said, that I is not wishing to go on. Dream catching is finished for today. An extract from the BFG by Roald Dahl. Thank you friends. Bye bye.